Ron was a mechanic who lived far away from the center of the galaxy. He worked in a small workshop on the edge of a frontier station where traders, explorers, and wanderers came to repair their ships. His hands were always covered in grease, and his clothes were worn from years of hard work. He did not think of himself as important. He was simply a man who understood machines and kept them alive when others had given up on them. Life on the frontier was not peaceful, but Ron liked the silence of his workshop. He liked the steady hum of tools and the smell of metal after welding. He was used to fixing broken engines and damaged cargo ships. Nothing in his life suggested that one day a queen would enter his world. It happened on a day like any other. Ron was bent over a cracked thruster core when the door of his workshop slid open. At first, he did not even look up. He thought it was another trader in need of a quick fix. But when he finally raised his eyes, his breath caught. Before him stood a figure tall and commanding. Her skin carried a faint silver shade, and her eyes glowed with an inner fire. She was dressed in a cloak that shimmered like woven starlight. Every movement of hers spoke of authority and strength. She was no ordinary traveler. She was the queen of the alien people known as the Viuri. Ron froze, unsure what to say. The queen looked at him as if she already knew his measure. Without a word, she placed a large piece of armor on the workbench. It was damaged, its surface cracked and its inner circuits sparking weakly. "You will repair this," she said. Her voice was calm but firm, leaving no space for refusal. Ron wiped his hands on a cloth and studied the armor. It was not just a piece of battle gear. It was alive in some strange way. The metal pulsed faintly as if it had a heartbeat. The design was unlike anything he had ever seen before. The Queen's own engineers should have been the ones to fix such an artifact. Why bring it to him, a simple human mechanic? He opened his mouth to speak, but only managed, I can try." The Queen tilted her head slightly, as if weighing his courage. Then she stepped back and allowed him to work. Ron pulled his tools closer and examined the damage. The armor was cracked near its core, where energy conduits met. He touched the surface carefully, and for a moment he felt a strange warmth beneath his fingers, like the beat of a living creature. It startled him, but he continued. Hours passed as Ron worked. The Queen stood silently, watching. He tried to ignore the weight of her presence, but it was not easy. Every time he adjusted a circuit or replaced a filament, he could feel her eyes on him. He wondered why she trusted him. Perhaps she had no choice. Perhaps her people had failed, and she had turned to the only one left who dared to touch her sacred gear. Finally, after long effort, the armor gave a steady glow. The circuits hummed back to life, and the pulsing grew stronger, steadier. Ron stepped back, wiping sweat from his forehead. "It should work now," he said quietly. The Queen stepped forward and placed her hand on the armor. The glow brightened as if it recognized her touch. For the first time, a faint smile touched her lips. It was not the smile of a ruler, but of someone who had been given hope. "You have done well, human," she said. Ron bowed slightly, unsure of how to respond. He had repaired machines for years, but this was different. He felt as though he had touched something sacred, something that belonged to a world far beyond his own. The Queen lifted the armor and turned to leave, but then she paused at the door. She looked back at him, her silver eyes steady. "Ron," she said, speaking his name as if she had always known it. "You will be called upon again." Then she was gone, leaving the workshop silent once more. Ron stood still, staring at the empty doorway. He could still feel the strange warmth of the armor on his hands. He had no idea what the Queen truly wanted from him, but he knew his life was no longer ordinary. Something had begun, something larger than himself, and he was caught in it without understanding why. As he returned to his bench, the hum of his tools no longer felt the same. The sound carried with it the memory of her voice, the weight of her gaze, and the mystery of why a queen would choose him. That night, as the stars shone outside the station, Ron lay awake. His thoughts kept returning to the queen and her armor that seemed alive. A strange feeling grew within him. It was not fear, though danger surrounded her. It was not pride, though she had spoken his name. It was something he could not yet name, something that pulled him toward her world even as he tried to stay in his own. The frontier station felt small now. His workshop, once his entire life, felt like the first page of a story he did not yet understand. The next morning Ron returned to his workshop as he always did. Yet nothing felt the same. The room was filled with the smell of metal and oil, but his hands moved slower than usual. His thoughts kept returning to the queen and her strange armor. He had repaired many machines, but never something alive. The armor's faint heartbeat, its glow when touched, the way it seemed to respond to him, it unsettled him. Machines were supposed to be silent and less powered, cold and less heated. This one had felt almost like a living creature. Ron shook his head, trying to focus. Traders would arrive soon, and they needed his work. But before he could even lift his tools, the door opened once again. Two tall guards entered, their armor shining with polished stone and glowing lines. Between them walked the queen herself. She moved with the same calm authority as before, but this time she did not carry her gear. "Ron," she said, her voice steady. "You will come with me." He blinked, confused. "To where?" "To my vessel," she replied. "The armor you repaired must be tested. And there are more things you must see." Ron wanted to refuse. He was not a soldier, not an explorer. He was only a mechanic. But something inside him urged him forward. His curiosity burned brighter than his fear. He wiped his hands on his apron, nodded once, and followed. The Queen's vessel was nothing like the small ships Ron had repaired. It was vast, shaped like a crescent of silver light, its surface flowing as if made of liquid metal. When he stepped inside, he felt as though he had entered the heart of a living creature. The walls pulsed faintly with soft light, and the air was filled with a low hum that reminded him of a distant heartbeat. Her guards led him into a chamber filled with strange devices. In the center stood the armor he had repaired. It rested on a platform that glowed beneath it. Thin streams of light passed over its surface, as though the ship itself was studying it. Ron stepped closer. He could see where his work had mended the cracked conduits. The armor pulsed stronger now, alive with energy. The Queen spoke from behind him. "Our war gear is more than metal. It is bonded to the bloodline of my people. When damaged, only one with a steady hand and an honest heart may restore it. My own engineers have failed many times. Yet you, a human, succeeded." Ron frowned, still staring at the armor. "I only repaired what was broken. Circuits and conduits. Nothing more." Her voice grew softer. "And yet it lives again because of you. Do you not feel it?" He hesitated. The truth pressed on his mind. He had felt it, the strange warmth beneath his fingers, the pulse like a heartbeat. He had felt it more strongly than any machine should allow. But to admit it would make him sound like a dreamer, not a mechanic. "I felt something," he said at last. "I do not understand it. The queen stepped closer, her silver eyes fixed on him. That is enough. Understanding will come later. She raised her hand, and the armor lifted from the platform, floating through the air. It circled slowly, then opened as if inviting her inside. With a smooth step, she entered, and the armor sealed around her form. The glow of the armor brightened, spreading across its surface like fire through glass. The queen moved her arm, and the armor responded instantly. She took a step forward, and the chamber trembled with power. Ron could not look away. He had seen soldiers wear protective suits, but this was different. This was not a suit she commanded. It was a living extension of her will. The queen raised her hand, and a shield of pure energy formed before her. She lowered it, and the shield vanished. Then she drew her arm back, and a blade of light extended from her gauntlet. The air around it crackled with heat. Finally, the armor folded back, releasing her. She stepped onto the platform once more, calm as though nothing had happened. "You see now," she said. "This is more than a weapon. It is a legacy of my people. And it is tied to me. Without it, I cannot stand as queen." Ron's mind spun with questions, but he could only manage one. "Why trust me with it?" For the first time, her eyes softened. "Because the machine answered you. Because it let you touch what it has refused from others. It accepts you." Ron shook his head. "I am no warrior. I only fix what is broken." "Perhaps," she said. "But even a machine knows the difference between hands that heal and hands that destroy. That is why I brought you here." He looked again at the armor, still glowing faintly on the platform. His chest tightened. The queen's words unsettled him. He had always thought of himself as ordinary. Yet now he was standing inside a living ship, watching a queen step into armor that responded like a living thing, and she claimed it trusted him. The chamber door opened, and one of the guards entered quickly. He bowed to the queen and spoke in a low voice. "My queen, the council grows restless. They question your choice to involve a human." The queen's gaze hardened, but she did not turn from Ron. "Let them question. They will see the truth soon enough." The guard bowed again and left. Ron exhaled slowly. "Your people do not want me here." Her lips curved in the faintest smile. "That is their weakness, not yours. Fear blinds them. I see further." He did not know what to say. He felt both honored and burdened by her words. The weight of her trust pressed heavily on his shoulders. The queen gestured to the platform. "There will be more repairs to come. The armor is strong, but the wars are endless. When the time comes, you will be called again. Until then, remain ready." Ron lowered his head slightly in agreement. He was only a mechanic, yet somehow his path was being pulled into a world of queens, living machines, and politics he could barely understand. As the queen and her guards led him back to his workshop, Ron's thoughts churned. He did not know why the armor had accepted his hands, or why the queen had chosen him instead of her own kind. But deep inside, a small spark of pride grew. Maybe he was more than a man who fixed broken engines. Maybe, just maybe, he had touched something greater, something that would change not only his life but the fate of more than one world. Days passed after Ron's visit to the Queen's vessel, yet he could not shake the memory of what he had seen. The armor that pulsed like a living being, the Queen who moved inside it with such grace, and her words that still echoed in his mind, "The machine answered you." Ron returned to his routine in the workshop, but the routine no longer felt ordinary. Every time he touched a broken machine, he remembered the warmth of the queen's gear. He remembered how it had pulsed beneath his hands, as if it trusted him. His thoughts wandered often, and more than once, a traitor had to call his name twice before he answered. One morning, the sound of footsteps broke the silence of his workshop. He turned and found the queen's guards once again. They did not speak many words. They simply said, "The queen summons you." Ron felt a familiar unease, but he wiped his hands, locked his tools away, and followed. The queen awaited him in her vessel. This time, she was not in armor. She wore flowing robes that shimmered like moonlight, and around her neck was a crest shaped like two wings of silver. Her expression was calm, but her eyes carried weight. "Ron," she said, "today is the day of the court gathering. The nobles of my people will stand before me to speak their thoughts and offer judgment on recent matters. I wish for you to be present." Ron frowned slightly. "Me? I am not part of your court." Her gaze remained steady. "That is true, but you are part of what has happened. You repaired my armor when others failed. The nobles will see you, and they will know. Your presence will carry meaning." Ron wanted to protest. He was no speaker, no noble, no warrior. He was only a mechanic who fixed what was broken. Yet the queen's voice left no room for refusal. He nodded, though his chest tightened with worry. The court hall of the Viuri was unlike anything Ron had ever seen. It was vast, built of stone that shone with silver veins, as if the very rock carried light. Tall pillars rose to a ceiling that looked like the night sky itself, filled with stars that shifted slowly as though alive. Nobles filled the hall, each dressed in fine robes marked with colors of their houses. Their eyes turned at once to Ron when he entered beside the queen. He could feel their stares like sharp blades. Some whispered, some frowned, and some looked at him with open dislike. He lowered his gaze, wishing he could fade into the floor, but the queen walked forward with confidence, and so he followed. At the front of the hall, the queen raised her hand. The whispers faded, and silence filled the chamber. She spoke, her voice echoing with power. "My people," she said, "the armor of our bloodline was damaged in battle. Many tried to repair it. All failed. Yet it was restored by these hands." She gestured toward Ron. Every eye turned on him again. He wished he could disappear, but he stood still, though his hands curled at his sides. The queen continued. "This human, a simple mechanic of the frontier, has done what none among you could." The armor answered him. It returned to life beneath his touch. "This is not chance. This is bond. For that reason, I call him not servant, not subject, but consort." The word struck the hall like thunder. Gasps filled the air. Nobles leaned forward, their faces a mix of shock, anger, and disbelief. Ron's own breath caught. He turned to the queen, certain he had heard wrong. "Consort," he whispered. She met his gaze and gave the smallest nod. The nobles erupted in voices. Some shouted in protest, others argued fiercely. Words like unworthy, outsider, and human filled the air. The queen lifted her hand once more, and silence returned, though it was strained. "You question my choice," she said, her eyes sweeping over them. "But the armor does not lie. It accepts him. And so must you." Her words were final, yet Ron could feel the tension in the room. The nobles bowed their heads, but not all bowed with sincerity. He saw their eyes burning with anger, their lips tied with discontent. When the gathering ended, the queen walked with Ron through the long hallways of her vessel. The glow of the walls seemed softer now, as if reflecting her mood. Ron spoke at last, his voice low. "Why did you call me that? Consort?" She stopped and turned to him. "Because you stood before the court not as a servant, but as one who has been chosen. The word carries weight. It binds their eyes to you. They may hate it, but they cannot ignore it." He shook his head. "I am not a leader. I am not worthy of such a word." Her gaze softened for the first time. Worth is not always measured by rank or blood. Sometimes it is measured by the hands that heal, the heart that does not turn away, the courage to stand when all others fail. You do not yet see it, but I do. Ron felt his chest tighten again, but this time it was not fear. It was something else, something he could not yet name. Later, when he returned to his workshop, he sat alone in silence. The Queen's words still echoed in his mind. Consort. Chosen. Worth. The traders came and went, but he barely noticed them. He thought of the noble's angry eyes, of the Queen's calm strength, and of the armor that had pulsed beneath his hands. He thought of how quickly his life had changed, how a simple repair had drawn him into a world of power and danger. Outside, the station lights flickered against the stars. Inside, Ron sat with thoughts that refused to leave him. He did not know what the future would bring, but one truth had settled in his heart. The days after the court gathering were tense for Ron. Word had traveled faster than he expected. Rumors spread through the station and beyond the Queen's court. Some of the Viuri nobles whispered in corners about the human mechanic who had been called consort. Others openly questioned the Queen's judgment. Their voices carried fear and anger, as though the Queen's choice threatened the traditions that had lasted for centuries. Ron tried to return to his workshop and to the quiet of his machines. He repaired engines and cleaned circuits, yet every sound outside reminded him of the whispers. The station felt smaller, crowded with eyes that judged him. He wondered how one man could be the center of such attention. One evening, as the twin suns began to set beyond the horizon of the frontier station, a messenger arrived. The young Viuri courier bowed deeply, his voice low. Consort Ron, some among the council plan to act against the Queen. They believe your presence weakens her rule. You should be careful. Ron's heart pounded. He had imagined whispers, scowls, and anger. But this was more. It was warning. Threat. His mind raced with questions. How could a council move against the Queen? Could they dare attack her? Could they even harm him? He looked at the messenger, his hands shaking slightly. What do you mean? The messenger's eyes darted around, as if the shadows themselves could hear them. There are those who plot to remove her from power. They say a human cannot be trusted. They say she has been fooled. If they move, you will be the first target. They fear your influence. Ron swallowed hard. He had never considered danger before. Mechanics repaired what was broken. They did not face plots and rebellions. And yet, here he was, at the center of one, merely for touching a machine and earning the Queen's trust. He left the messenger with only a nod and returned to the quiet of his workshop. But the hum of engines and the smell of metal could no longer comfort him. He thought of the Queen, walking through the court with calm strength, her silver eyes steady as she faced angry nobles. He thought of the armor he had repaired, alive and pulsing beneath her touch. He thought of the word she had spoken, the word that tied him to her people, to a world larger and more dangerous than anything he had ever known. He could not leave, though part of him wished to vanish into the frontier beyond the station. He had seen what the armor could do in skilled hands. He had seen the queen command it with precision and power. She relied on it and on him, even if he did not yet understand why. And in that realization, he made a choice. He would stay. He would stand by her. The next day, the queen summoned him once more. He followed her onto the vessel, heart heavy with unease. She was already prepared, her armor laid out on the platform, shimmering softly in the chamber's light. "Ron," she said, her voice calm as ever. "I know of the whispers. The council questions me. Some plot against my rule. You must understand, their fear comes from what they do not control. We must be ready for anything." Ron nodded. "I will do what I can. But I am not a fighter. I am only a mechanic." Her eyes softened. "You are more than you believe. Today, you will learn that even the smallest hands can change the course of a battle." For hours, she explained the systems of her armor and the technology that bound it to her. She showed him the defensive shields, the energy conduits, the mechanisms that powered movement faster than any human could comprehend. Every detail mattered. Every adjustment could make the difference between life and death. Ron listened, his mind racing to understand. He had repaired machines for years, but this was not just repair. This was strategy, engineering, and instinct combined. Every piece of knowledge he gained made him more connected to the armor, more aware of its potential and of the queen who relied on it. As the session ended, she spoke quietly, almost to herself. "They will come. They will try to test me, to test us. I trust you to be ready." Ron swallowed hard. "How can I protect you? I am not trained for this." She turned to him fully, her gaze steady. "Sometimes protection is not strength alone. Sometimes it is knowledge, skill, and courage. You have skill. You have courage, even if you do not yet see it. That is why I called you consort." The word returned to him, heavy and full of meaning. He realized it was not simply a title. It was responsibility. He had been chosen to stand with her, to face what others feared. Later, alone in the vessel's quiet chambers, Ron reflected on the danger that awaited. The council and the nobles may act at any moment. The queen's enemies were hidden among friends. Every whisper, every glance could carry a threat. He could not escape it. He could not run. And yet, beneath the fear, a determination grew. He had touched something alive, something greater than himself. He had earned the trust of a queen. If danger came, he would meet it, not as a mere human mechanic, but as someone who had been chosen to stand beside her. As the sun set outside the vessel, Ron looked toward the stars. He imagined the battles that might come, the whispers of rebellion that would test courage and loyalty. He imagined the queen, standing in her armor, strong and unyielding. And he understood, finally, that this was more than adventure or duty. This was trust. He clenched his fists, the determination in his chest steadying him. He would not flee. He would not hide. The frontier might be small, the council might plot, but he had a place now, and he would honor it. In the quiet of the night, the vessel hummed around him. The armor pulsed faintly, as if sensing his resolve. And somewhere deep inside, Ron felt the first spark of courage that would carry him through the trials to come. The rebellion whispered in shadowed halls, the nobles murmured their doubts, and danger crept like a silent storm. But Ron stood ready, not as a simple mechanic, but as the one who had touched the pulse of life in a queen's armor, and whose hands could change the course of what was yet to come. The night came quietly at first, with stars glittering over the frontier station. Ron was in his workshop, cleaning tools and repairing a small transport engine. He had just begun to feel some calm return after the warnings of rebellion. The Queen's words still echoed in his mind, reminding him that courage came in many forms. Then the alarm sounded. Red lights flashed across the walls of the station, and the hum of engines was replaced by urgent sirens. Ron's heart leapt. Something was wrong. He grabbed a toolkit and rushed outside, his eyes scanning the station. Smoke rose from the far end of the docking bay. Figures moved quickly through the shadows, and the shouts of Fury guards filled the air. Ron could see the flash of weapons in the distance, and he realized immediately the rebellion had come. Without thinking, he ran toward the Queen's vessel. The path was dangerous, littered with debris and bodies of those caught in the first wave. Ron's hands shook, but he pressed forward. His mind replayed every lesson the Queen had taught him about her armor and its systems. He was not a soldier, yet he had knowledge they did not. Knowledge that could save lives. When he reached the vessel, he found the Queen in the hangar chamber, already wearing her repaired armor. Her movements were quick and precise, as if she had already anticipated the attack. Guards around her fought fiercely, but they were outnumbered. "Ron," she said sharply, "come here. We need every advantage." He approached quickly, eyes scanning the armor for ways he could help. "What can I do?" he asked, his voice steady despite the fear gripping him. "Follow my instructions exactly. Use the controls and triggers I show you. Focus and act quickly," she replied. The Queen handed him a small interface device that connected to the armor's defensive systems. She moved to the front, leading the fight, and Ron stayed behind, adjusting energy shields and rerouting power to the defensive turrets. His hands flew over the controls, making small changes that caused sudden bursts of light to shield the vessel from incoming attacks. The rebels advanced with precision, cutting through the station with coordinated strikes. Some were skilled fighters, others relied on numbers. Yet the Queen moved like a shadow through them, her armor glowing, her every strike precise. Ron followed her instructions, activating traps, redirecting power, and stabilizing the shields. He realized he had become part of the battle, not with weapons in his hands, but with skill and knowledge that kept the Queen and her guards alive. A group of attackers breached the inner chamber. The Queen turned, her gauntlets flaring with energy blades, and met them head-on. Ron triggered a trap beneath the floor, sending a surge of energy that knocked the attackers off balance. He worked quickly, heart pounding, sweat running down his face. The Queen glanced at him for a brief moment. "Well done. Keep it steady." He nodded and adjusted the system again. Every action was critical. One wrong move could collapse the defenses and leave her exposed. He could feel the weight of responsibility pressing on him, heavier than any machine he had repaired before. Hours seemed to pass in minutes. The sounds of battle filled the vessel, mixing with alarms and the hum of energy. Ron's focus never wavered. He learned quickly, understanding patterns in the attackers' movements, predicting where shields needed reinforcement, and where traps would be most effective. The Queen fought relentlessly, moving through the chaos with unmatched skill. Her armor pulsed in response to her will, the light flashing with every strike. She did not falter, though exhaustion would have broken any ordinary fighter. Ron realized that her strength came not only from the armor but from her mind and courage. At one point, a powerful strike shattered part of the outer wall. Debris flew toward the Queen, and instinctively, Ron triggered the energy barrier just in time. The debris was stopped midair, sparing her from serious injury. She turned toward him, and for a brief moment, their eyes met. There was trust there, fierce and unspoken. Together, they continued. Ron adjusted systems, rerouted energy, and followed her precise instructions. The rebels began to falter, confused by traps and unexpected defenses. The queen moved among them, her strikes decisive. Gradually, the attackers were forced back, and the tide of the battle began to turn. The final wave surged forward, the largest group yet. Ron felt his hands shake as he activated every defense he could. The queen met the attackers head-on, her armor glowing brighter than ever. Ron's actions complemented her every move, forming a silent coordination that saved lives and broke the rebels' advance. At last, silence fell. The remaining attackers fled, leaving the station in ruins but the queen and her guards alive. Ron slumped against the console, breathing heavily, his clothes scorched in some places. The queen approached, her armor still glowing softly. She placed a hand on his shoulder. "You have done more than I expected, Ron. You were calm when others would panic, skilled when others would falter. You kept us alive." Ron shook his head, exhausted. "I only followed your instructions. I am not a fighter." Her silver eyes softened. "You are more than you realize. Knowledge and courage are as powerful as any weapon. You were essential tonight. Without your hands, the battle might have been lost." He could feel the weight of her words. For the first time, he understood what it meant to be her consort. Not a title of honor alone, but a responsibility. A bond that went beyond words. As the fires were extinguished and the smoke cleared, Ron looked around at the damaged station. The rebellion had struck hard, yet they had survived. He had survived. And beside him stood the queen, unbroken, powerful, and alive. For the first time, Ron felt pride. He was not a hero by training, not a warrior by birth, but he had played a crucial role in a battle that could have ended in disaster. And in that moment, he knew his life would never return to the quiet of a small workshop. The queen stood tall, armor still glowing faintly, and placed her hand lightly on Ron's arm. "Tonight, you have proven your place. The council and the rebels will remember. The galaxy will remember. And I will remember." Ron nodded silently, heart still racing. He was tired, but he had learned something vital. Courage came in many forms, and even a simple mechanic could make a difference in the fate of worlds. Outside, the stars burned bright against the darkness. Inside, Ron and the Queen stood together, ready for whatever would come next. The morning after the battle, the station was quiet, but the silence felt heavy. Ron walked through the corridors of the Queen's vessel, his mind still replaying the night's events. He had never imagined a world like this, where courage and knowledge mattered more than rank. He had never imagined he could play a role in defending a queen and her people. The Queen stood on the observation deck, looking out at the frontier beyond. Her armor had been repaired and polished after the battle, yet she remained calm, her posture perfect. The battle had tested her strength, but she had endured. Ron approached cautiously, unsure if he should speak. "You did well last night," she said, not turning to face him. Her voice was steady, but it carried weight. Few could have kept up with the pace of events. Few could have remained focused under pressure. "You did both." Ron shook his head. "I only followed your instructions. You were the one fighting. I only helped." Her gaze shifted, finally meeting his. For the first time, her silver eyes seemed softer, almost human in their expression. You do not see what you have done. You were more than a helper. You were my anchor. Your calm hands and quick thinking saved lives. Ron felt his chest tighten. He was not used to praise, especially from a queen. He had spent his life repairing broken machines, not earning trust from royalty. And yet, here she was, telling him that he mattered. A messenger approached, bowing low. "My queen, the council has requested a meeting. They wish to discuss the events of the night." The queen nodded. "Very well. Ron, you will come with me. They must see you, understand why you were needed, and understand the truth." Ron hesitated. The council had opposed him before. He had seen their anger, their distrust. He was not a noble, not a warrior, and yet he was to face them again. "I am not sure I belong there," he said softly. "You belong because you were needed," she replied. "Your place is beside me." Together, they entered the council chamber. The room was filled with tall Viuri nobles, their robes decorated with the colors of their houses. Their faces were grim, their eyes sharp. Some looked ready to speak, some held their tongues, and some whispered among themselves. The queen stepped forward, her armor gleaming faintly in the chamber light. "The events of last night were decisive," she said. "Our station was attacked by rebels. Many would have faltered. Some would have failed. Yet we prevailed. And this human, Ron, played a critical role in our survival." The council murmured. One of the nobles, tall and stern, rose. "My queen, it is not that we doubt your judgment, but a human is not one of us. How can we trust a being from a distant frontier, someone with no knowledge of our ways, to protect the bloodline of the Viuri?" Ron stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "I am not one of your people," he said. "I am only a mechanic. But I know machines. I know how to act quickly and follow instructions. Last night, I did what I could to keep your queen and your people safe. That is all I know." A hush fell over the chamber. The queen's eyes glinted with pride. "And that is enough," she said. "It is not blood that defines loyalty. It is action, skill, and courage. Ron has shown all of these." Another noble rose, his tone sharper. "Even so, placing a human at the center of our defense sets a dangerous precedent. What if this trust is misplaced?" The queen turned fully to face the council. "You question what you do not understand. Ron's hands saved this station. His knowledge kept the armor and the systems functioning. His courage saved lives. If you continue to question him, you question me. And I will not allow that." The room fell silent. The nobles looked at each other, weighing her words. Some bowed reluctantly, others remained stiff, but none spoke further. When the council meeting ended, the queen led Ron back to the observation deck. He breathed slowly, trying to calm the tension that had gripped him. "You faced them with courage," she said softly. "I could not have asked for a better partner last night." Ron looked at her, uncertain how to respond. "Partner?" he asked quietly. "Yes," she said. "Not a servant, not a simple helper. You stood beside me. You were part of the battle. You were trusted, and you earned it. That is why I call you consort. It is not only a word of title, but a word of trust." Ron felt warmth rise in his chest. The word had felt strange before, heavy with meaning he did not understand. Now, after the battle and the council, it made sense. It was not just about honor. It was about responsibility and courage. The Queen's gaze softened further. I know this is new for you. You may not yet see your own strength. But I do. You are more than a mechanic. You are my ally, and I trust you. Ron nodded slowly. He had spent so long thinking of himself as small, ordinary, incapable of affecting events beyond his workshop. Yet here, standing beside the Queen, he understood something important. Strength was not always measured in weapons or rank. Strength could be measured in knowledge, courage, and the willingness to act when others hesitated. The silence of the observation deck was comforting. The stars beyond the window burned steadily, indifferent to the small struggles of one station, one queen, one human. And yet those small struggles mattered deeply, shaping the lives of many. The Queen placed a hand lightly on his arm. The Council will watch you. The enemies of the station will watch you. But remember this: you are not alone. I stand with you, and I trust you. That bond cannot be broken. Ron felt a sense of determination settle inside him. He would not be intimidated by whispers or threats. He would not hide behind machines or excuses. He had been chosen to stand beside a queen, to face danger, to act when the moment demanded it. That was more than he had ever imagined. As he left the observation deck, he realized something else. The Queen's trust was not given lightly. It had been earned, through a simple act of repair, through courage in battle, and through steadfast focus when chaos surrounded them. That trust was rare, and he would honor it. The lessons of the battle, the council, and the trust forged in those moments remained with him. He was no longer only a human from a quiet frontier station. He was part of something larger. He was part of a bond that went beyond titles and tradition. He was the consort, chosen not by chance, but by action and courage. The days following the battle were quieter, but the station still carried the scars of the rebellion. Ron moved through the corridors with a new awareness. The whispers of nobles had faded slightly, replaced by cautious respect. Yet he knew that not all accepted him. Some still doubted his place beside the Queen. He spent hours in the vessel's workshops, repairing and upgrading systems, but his mind often drifted to the Queen. She walked through the station with calm authority, meeting her people, repairing trust, and reinforcing loyalty. Her presence inspired confidence, and yet he saw the exhaustion behind her silver eyes. One evening, the Queen summoned him to the observation deck. The stars outside shimmered brightly against the darkness, a quiet contrast to the chaos of recent days. "Ron," she said, her voice calm but filled with weight, "our people are beginning to understand. They see the courage, the knowledge, and the loyalty you have shown. Some still resist, but many are learning that trust is not bound by blood alone." He nodded, feeling a sense of accomplishment he had never known before. "I only did what I could. I never thought I would matter so much." Her gaze softened. "Matter is not about thought alone. It is about action. Your actions have shaped the station, this battle, and my trust. That is why you are called consort, not for title alone, but for the bond we share." Ron looked at her, understanding for the first time the full meaning of the word. It was more than recognition. It was responsibility, trust, and partnership. He had been chosen to stand beside her, to share the weight of leadership and protection. As they spoke, alarms sounded once again, but this time it was not an attack. It was a signal from neighboring stations, reporting that the rebellion had been fully contained. The leaders of the rebellious faction had been captured or had fled. Peace, fragile but certain, was returning. The Queen placed her hand lightly on Ron's arm. Tonight, we celebrate not only victory but trust. You have proven that even one who is not born among us can stand beside a queen, protect her, and earn the respect of her people. Ron felt a warmth he could not describe. He had lived most of his life in quiet work, fixing machines, and dreaming little. Now he stood beside a queen, recognized for courage and skill, not by chance, but by his own actions. Over the next days, the station slowly recovered. Repairs were made to damaged systems, and the Queen addressed the council. She spoke of unity, of courage, and of trust that could cross boundaries of species and tradition. Ron watched quietly, grateful for the lessons he had learned and for the place he had earned. One afternoon, the Queen approached him in the workshop. "Ron, there is something I must show you." She led him to a small chamber filled with glowing devices and tools. At the center was a newly repaired piece of armor, more advanced than any he had seen before. She smiled, a rare soft expression that lit her features. "This is yours to study," she said. "I trust you with it, as I have trusted you with mine. Learn its secrets, improve it, and when the time comes, we will stand together, ready for whatever challenges the galaxy presents." Ron felt a sense of pride and responsibility unlike anything he had ever known. He knelt slightly before the armor, reverent, understanding that this was more than a machine. It was a bond, a symbol of trust and partnership with the Queen. Days turned into weeks. Ron continued to learn, repair, and improve the armor. The Queen's trust in him deepened with every action. And in return, Ron felt his own courage growing, not just in skill, but in understanding the importance of standing beside those who relied on him. The station flourished. The people began to speak more kindly of him. Some still whispered, but the whispers no longer carried threats. They were acknowledgments, cautious, but real. And the bond between Ron and the Queen became known, not as a rumor, but as a living proof of partnership. One evening, as the sun set and bathed the station in golden light, the Queen stood with Ron on the observation deck. They watched the stars, quiet together. "You have grown in ways you do not yet see," she said softly. "Courage is not just in battle. It is in every choice you make, in every hand extended, and in every trust given." Ron looked at her, understanding fully for the first time. "I see now," he said. "It is not only about machines or battles. It is about trust, responsibility, and standing together. I am honored to be your consort, not for a title, but for the bond we share." She nodded, and for a moment, silence held them both. No words were needed. The battles had been fought, the rebellion had ended, and the trust between them was stronger than ever. Ron realized that his life had changed completely. He had been an ordinary mechanic, but now he was part of something far greater. He had touched courage, earned trust, and stood beside a queen. His hands, once only skilled at repairing machines, had shaped the future of a people and the course of events far beyond his small station. The Queen turned to him with a small smile. "The galaxy is vast, Ron. Many challenges remain. But tonight, we rest together." Ron nodded, feeling a sense of peace. He had faced danger, learned courage, and earned trust. He had discovered that even one human, ordinary in origin, could matter in ways he had never imagined. As the stars burned steadily outside the observation deck, Ron and the Queen stood side by side. The station hummed with quiet life, repaired and renewed. And in that moment, the bond between them was unshakable. Not a word of title alone, but trust, courage, and partnership that would endure through whatever the galaxy might bring. For Ron, the frontier had expanded beyond the small workshop. He had found purpose, trust, and a bond that transcended expectation. He was no longer only a mechanic. He was the consort, chosen by the Queen, and together they were ready for the future.